Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue au 7e épisode de Sac Passé, épisode qui s'inscrit en édition spéciale dans le cadre du Mois de l'Histoire des Noirs, avec le soutien de la table ronde du Mois de l'Histoire des Noirs que je remercie. C'est notre dernier épisode en fait et je suis content de terminer, quoique j'ai beaucoup de plaisir à faire les podcasts, mais je dois dire que la fin du mois, quand je pose la question « Sac Passé pour moi », je me sens fatigué. Le mois a été un mois très mouvementé en termes d'occupation, mais également en termes de mouvement dans l'actualité. Je pense qu'il y a eu pas juste des célébrations, mais des enjeux qui sont très difficiles. Et je pense que une des choses que je voudrais partager, ça m'habite en fait de parler de la nomination de Benoît Charette comme ministre de la lutte contre le racisme. Benoît Charette qui est également ministre de l'Environnement. Et plusieurs d'entre vous avaient peut-être vu des prises de position diverses par rapport à la nomination de M. Charette. J'ai moi-même en fait fait quelques entrevues, dont une qui a été beaucoup diffusée, qui a été sur Radio-Canada, qui a été diffusée sur ma page Instagram et sur ma page Facebook. Et il y a quelques éléments que je voudrais rajouter également au sujet de cette nomination-là. En ajout à ce qu'a mentionné entre autres Will Prosper à son entrevue durant une entrevue au 98.5 avec Paul Arcan. Je pense que c'est pertinent de mentionner qu'une personne blanche peut être ministre de la lutte contre le racisme, tout dépendant de l'angle qu'on prend quand on prend position sur cette question-là. Il y a beaucoup de personnes qui disent que la lutte contre le racisme, en fait, c'est pas tant de guérir le lynché, c'est un regard sur le lyncheur lui-même qui se regarde aller dans son action. Et si on regarde la lutte contre le racisme comme une invitation à ce que les personnes blanches considèrent leur rôle et qu'elles fassent une introspection individuelle et collective, je pense qu'il y aurait une pertinence, en fait, à ce qu'il y ait un ministre blanc qui invite la population à regarder comment elle perpétue le racisme. Ça, c'est une raison pour laquelle il y aurait peut-être une pertinence là. L'autre élément que je mentionnerais, c'est le fait que un ministre blanc peut s'entourer et avoir effectivement la sensibilité pour lutter contre le racisme. Sauf que, dans le cas de Benoît Charette spécifiquement, pour un ensemble de raisons, déjà le fait qu'il est ministre de l'Environnement et qu'il n'a pas le temps de traiter la question du racisme, il a déjà fait la démonstration qu'il pose des actions qui contribuent au racisme. D'abord, il y a une incohérence du fait qu'en 2010, en Chambre, il a reconnu l'existence du racisme systémique, ce qu'il ne fait pas en date d'aujourd'hui. Le fait qu'il ait utilisé sa femme noire comme étant un argument et qui prétendrait que finalement il existerait un racisme par procuration, j'y reviens, c'est complètement absurde. Le fait qu'il ait relayé moins de 24 heures en fait après sa nomination un article du Journal de Montréal d'une femme noire qui nie l'existence du racisme systémique pour justifier sa position, qui contredit sa propre position, à un moment donné, ça devient une multitude d'incohérences qui n'ont pas de sens. Et je terminerai sur cette question-là en disant que il faut regarder pas uniquement Benoît Charette comme individu, mais également de regarder le contexte. Le gouvernement provincial nie l'existence du racisme systémique. Déjà là, ça nous empêche de voir pleinement la situation parce qu'on n'est pas capable de prendre action par rapport à un problème qui est pas reconnu. Première des choses. Ce gouvernement-là a nommé Yann Lafrenière, un homme blanc qui était ancien porte-parole du SPVM, qui niait en fait l'existence du profilage racial comme ministre des Affaires autochtones. Quand Boshra Manaï a été nommé commissaire à la lutte contre le racisme à la ville de Montréal, je l'ai nommé à l'épisode qui impliquait Boshra Manaï, on a eu une réaction du gouvernement totalement inacceptable, une ingérence politique et administrative, alors que la personne est hautement compétente. Notre gouvernement a dit que c'est une erreur. Et là, on se retrouve avec Benoît Charette comme étant la personne qu'on nous dit comme étant le meilleur candidat. Donc, en plus des raisons qui ont déjà été nommées, comment se fait-il qu'on ait une incohérence où les candidats choisis sont deux hommes blancs qui nient l'existence du racisme systémique et qu'on considère qu'une femme musulmane qui est hautement compétente et qui a des études supérieures et de l'expérience terrain sur la lutte contre le racisme, c'est une erreur. Pour toutes ces raisons-là, j'ai un déficit de confiance par rapport à l'individu. Et je pense que je trouvais pertinent de parler de ces éléments-là. Maintenant, on peut passer à autre chose dans un esprit beaucoup plus joyeux. J'ai une amie, Christine Renaud, qui a lancé son livre Les Effrontés, l'histoire pas plate de 21 Québécoises audacieuses. Christine, elle est connue pour être d'abord la fondatrice de E07. Ceux et celles qui connaissent l'organisation C2 Montréal et l'événement C2 Montréal connaissent les fameux Brain Dates. C'est la fondatrice, la personne derrière, en fait, ce projet-là. Mais elle est allée un peu ailleurs de ce qu'elle fait à l'habitude avec ce livre-là, où on retrouve une histoire de 21 personnes de tous les horizons, incluant Gabriela Quinte-Garbeau, la personne de la librairie Racine avec qui on collabore dans le contexte du podcast. Donc, je tiens à dire bravo et merci Christine pour ce livre-là, et je vous invite, on va avoir le lien pour que vous puissiez l'acheter si vous le souhaitez. Moi, ce livre-là, il va être offert à ma nièce Olivia. Je conclurai en nommant que ça va être le premier épisode, à part tout ce que je viens de dire, qu'on va faire en anglais. Donc, je vais switch now to English, because we are a bilingual city. Alors, we have today Aiesha Robinson. I'm happy to see you here today. So welcome.
Thank you.
So Aiesha, you are a model. You are a speaker. You are the founder of Born to Rise. We're certainly going to talk about Born to Rise and many of your projects. You arrived here and you reminded me that you actually know my brother because of basketball, because you also used to play basketball. And I'm so happy because so many of our guests, for many reasons, have a connection with sports and basketball, and I certainly would like to hear you on that topic as well. So welcome again, and I'd like to ask you, sac passé?
Ma boulette. I'm doing good. You know, I'm thankful for health-wise. I woke up with a migraine, went to sleep with one, woke up with one. But I have the opportunity to take the medication that I need in order to get rid of it. So I'm blessed and fortunate to be able to have the resources to get better. So no complaints.
So now you feel good and you feel okay with going on with the interview? I
definitely feel better. I don't know. I came in here and it's like it went to the side for a second.
So the show is on, and if ever you feel the need to either take a break or you don't feel able to, because I don't experience migraines, but I've heard
Lucky.
that it's really something that can be very painful. So please feel free. I mean, to let me know if there's anything.
Thank you, appreciate it. But I think I'll rock through this.
Cool. So we mentioned Born to Rise. A nonprofit that you've founded. It fosters a community of changemakers through storytelling. Can you tell us more about Born to Rise's work and its impact?
Yeah, sure. So I can start from the beginning where it stems from. When I was diagnosed with the skin condition that I have called vitiligo, a lot of people think that or assume that I was born with it, but I was actually diagnosed with it at the age 18. And at that time, it wasn't very common to see people with this skin condition. There's a supermodel, Winnie Harlow, that has it, but at that time she wasn't at the level that she's at today. So anyone that I knew that had vitiligo, there was a negative connotation aligned with it. Everybody that I knew, they weren't accepting of this condition. So this goes as close to my grandfather having it himself, diagnosed in his 60s, and, you know, taking the time to make sure before he leaves his house to cover up so people won't see him. It goes from a high school friend that has it, lighter complexion of me, so you can't really tell, but she made sure to cover up. Michael Jackson apparently did the reverse treatment, so he went completely all white, allegedly. So all I knew was if you have vitiligo, cover up. You should not accept or walk around with the skin condition that you have.
Right.
And that took a toll on my mental health because unfortunately I was judged for the way that I looked. You know, walking down the streets, people would literally make rude comments while I'm just doing my daily task. People would stop me and be like, hey, do you know there's a cure? And I'd be like, yeah, but it's fine. Like, I don't need it. And they'll be like, well, you should go get it because you shouldn't be walking around like this, you know?
So can I stop you there? Because there's two things that I noticed. One, I mean, it's probably two sides of the same coin, but one, you had your grandfather having vitiligo.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, like if you look at someone on TV and you learn about the condition, you may not think that you may have it. But if you have someone in your family growing up, did you think that this is a condition that you might have, or this is something that never crossed your mind?
Oh, yeah. So when I first saw it, it started with a small white spot.
Okay.
And I had an idea as to what it was.
You already knew because of your
grandfather. But I ignored it, and I was hoping, you know, when you like scratch yourself and you get that scab and then you peel the scab and then it's just white. So
right.
I thought it was that. I was like, maybe it's going to be that. But after about a month where it wasn't going away, that's when I was like, okay, I might have vitiligo. So I actually told my friend that has vitiligo herself, and I never forget it. I was attending Dawson at the time, and we were in the girls' bathroom, and I showed it to her. And I'm like, do you think it's vitiligo? And she looked at me, she's like, yeah. She's like, Aiesha, you have vitiligo. And right then and there, it's like she confirmed like my worst nightmare. I dropped to my knees, just bawling my eyes out, because I was like, all right, this is it. Like, my life's over. No one's gonna accept me for who I am. I can't accept myself for who I am.
And I interrupted you when you were actually talking about that, and the look, how people saw you as this being negative per se, and basically saying that there's a cure. So you were there, so I'm listening.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, obviously, like my friends and my family, they're my biggest supporters. They saw me as Aiesha for who I am, and not the skin condition that I have. But for me, it was different, and I would sometimes get frustrated with them because I'm like, you guys don't notice it because you're probably around me all the time. But when I walk out there, people judge me. They look at me, they stare. Kids, you know, they have no filter, right? So they would like make comments and their parents won't correct them. So it definitely took me into a depression, to the point where I contemplated and even tried to commit suicide a couple of times because I wasn't happy. And it's not that I didn't want to be here anymore. I just didn't want to feel the pain, that burden that carried with vitiligo.
So I guess one thing that I'd like to know is, one thing I've noticed
Mm-hmm.
is that any given condition is not necessarily a problem. What creates the problem is the look of other people that makes it not normal to be who you are. And that's something that I've noticed with people with autism,
Mm-hmm.
where we talk about any TDAH, so it's like ADHD condition. So I guess I'm wondering, have you thought of that frame of saying, well, look, my condition is not a problem, and what creates it's really the environment? Is this something that you thought of?
Right, exactly. So this thought process came on a bit later in my life as I, started to look myself in the mirror and gain that self-confidence that I lacked. So I think the foundation of the problem is the lack of self-love and self-acceptance, because once I finally accepted myself and started to love the skin that I was in, those problems that I was noticing kind of vanished.
Right.
So I believe that when I stopped looking for the external validation and started looking for the internal, and I said, I'm beautiful just the way that I am, all those problems that were out there, I realized I was creating them.
Right. Wow. It really makes me think of a friend of mine that told me once that in the fight against racism, and he's a white person, in the fight against racism, I was often talking about how hurt I felt in terms of the comments that I was hearing and receiving, which are, and the suffering is very, very valid. But he told me once, you know what? Nobody will take away your dignity. And from that moment, it really shifted in terms of my feelings, my emotions. It really shifted, and I don't feel hurt as much, or actually don't feel the hurt.
Yeah.
Because of that dignity that I really hold very dear. So I hear something that is similar in what you're saying. Not to say that we should invalidate like whatever is out there, but there's an internal switch that seems to have been.
Exactly. And that's exactly what had happened. So when I first started when I had the confidence in me to actually decide to come out and share my story. The reason why I wanted to share my story was in case there was somebody else that had vitiligo and they felt alone. I know there wasn't a lot of examples out there with positive looks with how to live with vitiligo. So I wanted to be that voice to be like, hey, I have vitiligo. I'm continuing to rise above this. So can you. So that's how my message initially started. But then when I realized that it's on a deeper level than that, it stems from lack of self-love and self-acceptance. That's the message that I started to push out there. So whatever it is that anybody's going through, I feel like as long as you accept yourself for who you are and you have that confidence and that self-belief, then all those thoughts that we put on ourselves from outsiders it doesn't affect us anymore. So now when I hear somebody like make a comment about me, my question is not why me? Why are you making fun of me? I don't get defensive. It's what's going on with you. Like I feel bad. I have empathy for you because I'm like whatever's going on in your life, you're projecting it on me. So what's going on with you? Yeah.
So it's some sort of process of self-love, which is not easy. And based on self-love, loving the other, and understanding that the person who says whatever insult or comment has some level of suffering that you're curious about, which doesn't make it about you, but about the other person.
Exactly. And we can tie, so now how this ties into Born to Rise.
Exactly. What does it
do?
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, what's the work? What are the activities?
So Born to Rise, when I realized this was my story and so many people were able to relate to me, I found an opportunity to inspire others through storytelling. So I have an annual show where people come out and they share their stories of overcoming adversity in order to inspire others to do the same. So we cover topics. I mean, it's endless. We've had past speakers where they speak about addiction, alcoholism, cancer, bullying, whatever it is that they have been through that's affected their life, but they're able to overcome. I give them that platform to share their story and to help others.
So who are these people? How do you find them?
So I like to go for the general public. I just put out a casting out there and I say, hey, I'm looking for anybody that's willing to share their stories of overcoming adversity. Because I feel if it's somebody in your neighborhood, if it's somebody that's close, if you can watch them rise above, then it makes you think more that you can do it rather than comparing yourself to like the Oprah Winfrey's, because then we have that thought like, well, she's a millionaire. Of course she can overcome that. You know what I mean? There's a lack of connection there. But if it's somebody that's close to you, then you're like, she's right in my backyard and she was able to do this. So can I.
So, I guess you mentioned someone like Oprah. And I get that there's a distance between like the person who's quote unquote ordinary and the person who would be a billionaire. Right.
Billionaire. No, I said millionaire in my head. I was like, she's a billionaire, Aiesha.
Do you also believe that celebrity is overrated?
That celebrities are overrated?
Yeah. In connection with the process and what we're trying to convey with Born to Rise, I guess I'm coming from the idea that ordinary people can show that they rise. And I'm just wondering, do you also believe that what the importance that we give to celebrities is overrated, or that wouldn't be something that is an issue?
I don't think it'll be something that is an issue. I mean, I have celebrities that I look up to. That's, there's Oprah Winfrey, there's Trent Shelton, there's Jay Shetty, there's, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama. And so there are people out there that of celebrity status that can, I'm not saying that they can't inspire us. Of course, they can do it, right? But I feel for the more broken you are and the more like negative mindset that you have, it's harder to connect. Like you'll make those excuses as the following of, oh, this person is rich and made it. So like, they can't compare to me type thing, But if it's somebody that's next to you, it's like more, you're more questioning like, oh shit, well, maybe I can do this.
Right. And I understand it's basically something that is complementary.
Yes.
And hence the value of the work that you do.
Exactly. So that's what Born to Rise has been for the past. We're actually in April, it's going to be our 7th year that we've been a nonprofit. Unfortunately, last year, because of the pandemic, we didn't have the show. So our last show was in 2019. But we're in the stage of completely rebranding. So in April, we're going to have a virtual show where we'll talk about what other projects and what other events that we will be holding throughout the year. But at the end of the day, we are all about inspiring others through storytelling.
Right.
And fostering a community through that. And
my understanding, based on the little research that I've done, and also from what I'm hearing right now, is that kindness seems to be at a pillar of your work. And interestingly, unkindness seems also to have informed your vision. I've read that an article in the Globe and Mail which mentions that during your upbringing, you've both been bullied. And you've bullied as well, even prior to being 18 when vitiligo came into your life. Can you tell us more about these varying degrees of unkindness and the way they have informed your work?
Yeah, no, for sure. See, that's the thing. I think one of my biggest struggles is that I have now learned was that you think that you've been through one chapter in your life, and once that book is closed, that it won't happen again. But sometimes problems do reoccur. So for Born to Rise, when I became confident in my skin, I was like, oh, okay, I conquered life. I found the secret. Like, now there's never going to be any more struggles or adversities in my life. And then after that, other things happened. I was like, holy shit, like, this is what life is about. Life is about getting over the adversities that are thrown at you. So I would say my first adversity started when I was in elementary school. I grew up in the West Island, and the school that I went to was predominantly white people, leaving me to be the only Black person in my grade and like the third in the whole entire school. So I experienced racism. You know, I was made fun of for the color of my skin, the way how my hair looked. People would pull me out of the class to, you know, test new words on me. So if they learned something like the middle finger, they'll pull me out of class and just be like, and show me the finger, you know, or they learn the N-word. So they come up to me, they're like, nigger. You know, I don't know if I was supposed to say that on camera or not.
It's fine. It's fine. A white person, I would have said something different, but you know what? You're welcome.
Thank you. So at that time when I was getting bullied, I wasn't in school with my brother. It was just me to fight my own battles. But when I went to high school now, I was in a school where it was more diverse. I had people of all different ethnicities, and I had people that looked like me, you know, and my older brother.
Was it in the West Island as well?
Yes, it was in the West Island as well. Okay. So at that time, I think it wasn't confidence that I gained, but I think an attitude of like a badass, like, oh, you bullied me before, but now I got back up. I got people that could defend me. So anyone that bullied me or anyone that was as vulnerable as I was in elementary, those were my targets.
Right.
And I made their life a living hell. And I think up until grade 9, you know, I was such a jerk. I would like pull people's hair. They'd be walking the hallways, minding their own business. I tripped them in the hallways. Like, I was an asshole. And it wasn't until in grade 9 when one of my victims came up to me and she was like, you know, I'm going through a hard time at home, and coming into school, you don't make my life any easier. And she started crying, and I started crying with her, because at the end of the day, that's not who I was at the core of my being. You know, I was acting out based off of what I've been through. So, you know,
can I stop there though?
Yes.
Because I fundamentally believe that nobody who's a bully has that at their core. I mean, you know, some people say that hurt people hurt people.
That's what I was just about
right?
to say.
So go on.
Exactly. And that was me. I was somebody that was hurting from my past experience. So I was now taking it out on somebody else and hurting them. And after that, that was life-changing for me. I mean, that's when I stopped bullying. I became friends with like everybody in the school. And she became one of my best friends after that. So, I mean, for any bullies out there, like, address whatever it is that you're going through. You know what I mean? Seek help. I know it's easier said than done, but even the ones that are getting bullied also understand that it's not you that's the problem.
Right.
It's them and whatever it is that they're going through.
And it's interesting because it's almost a blessing that
yes.
friend of yours now came up to you and said it, because it's very rare that someone being bullied would have the courage to go up to his or her bully and say that. And I'm not saying that, and there's so many instances where people are bullied, and I'm not saying that people haven't, because it's really hard to do. But I'm acknowledging how powerful that can be.
Super powerful.
As a bullied person, to go up to your bully and say, look, this is what's happening to me, and be vulnerable to the person that is hurting you.
Yeah.
Congrats to her.
Yeah, no, it's big. I asked her if we could do like a live talking about it. She's not comfortable about it, but which is completely fine. But yeah, that was insane that she came up to me, and I was happy that I was the type of person to receive it. But yeah, it's super rare, like you said.
Wow. So you've played basketball.
Yes.
We often say that, people say, and I do say it, that basketball and sports basically, and having coaches and have a tremendous impact on youth lives. And I suspect that there's been that story that you shared, but playing basketball may have helped in who you are as an individual, and helped in terms of discipline. I'm making that assumption, but I'd like to know, what was the impact of playing sports in the person that you are today?
Through playing sports, I played basketball since I was 8 years old, and growing up for Brookwood, yeah.
Shout out to Brookwood.
And it's taught me probably some of my biggest life lessons, things that I use in my everyday life, in my working career, because you learn about, playing with a team and supporting one another, helping each other, all these things that aren't necessarily taught if you're in a sport by yourself, or if you're not playing, if you're not active in a sport. And it taught you community. Like, because of basketball, I'm still friends with the same people I was friends with since I was 8 years old. So basketball has also kept me out of trouble as well, when you say that, and I guess that's where I'd like to, I'm just curious. I mean, you were meant, I don't want to insist too much on the bullying part, but you mentioned that you've been a bully and you were playing basketball. So you were a troublemaker as you were doing that. So was there any interplay between both, and how you were as an athlete? Was it the same thing? Was it different? Oh yeah. So playing, I was a total different. When I was an athlete, I was a different person. Like, I was always team captain. I always was that role player that would always want to help my teammates get better. So if I had told my teammates at the time what I was doing at school, they wouldn't believe me.
Right.
They'd be like, what? Like, Aiesha did that? Because I came across like as the sweetest, the kindest person. My real self, I was my real self when I was on the court, when I was playing with my teammates. But what was I going to say? Lost my train of thought. When it came to
outside of sports, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but I was so preoccupied with playing sports and playing basketball and going to tournaments and doing private training with, I don't know if you know Henry Wong, but like
I do know him. Yeah.
So my whole family, we'd like every day I had something with basketball that it kept me from like getting in bad things, as to like, I was never a smoker because of it. My friends in high school, I know they'll be outside smoking, drinking. I didn't have time to get into that. Boyfriends, being on the loose. And like, I didn't have time to live or be part of that lifestyle. So I think, not that I think, I know that's because of basketball and just being so invested in that. And even like with everything that's going on today, I don't know if you tuned into the Montreal Community Cares.
So I wasn't available to attend, but I do know Montreal Community Cares, Dan Burke-Reed, the founder of it. I'm an admirer. So I do know that there's been an event in the context of the Black History Month. Was it Neil's
for Change.
So I'll let you speak to it and describe what happened. It was just yesterday. I think.
It was Wednesday. So Wednesday they had him. So Dan Burke-Reed, Montreal Community Cares, and the co-host was Thierry Lindor. They brought on a whole bunch of on Instagram Live. They had a whole bunch of Thierry. We always say that we're gonna play 1-on-1.
You'll beat him. We know.
So they brought on a whole bunch of like inspiring speakers, one of them being Reverend Gray. So I don't know if you know Reverend Darryl Gray. He lived in Montreal.
So I know, go ahead. I wouldn't pretend that I know.
Okay. So he was a huge influence in a lot of our lives growing up in Montreal in the basketball community. He's a pastor, but he was also super involved where he would come to our basketball games. He would coach us. He was my basketball coach at one point. And he was one of the speakers speaking on, everything that is going on in Montreal today. And they had Mamadi that came on and spoke for a bit as well. And Tiffany Callender that came on and spoke.
Huge change maker.
Yeah. Rowan Higgins, she came and she recited a powerful poem. And from that conversation, I was like, holy crap. And I think Berkey had said it, where he's like, this all happened. Like, they all know each other, like him, Tiffany Callender, Terry, through basketball. And it was just amazing to see like all these people that I know, and I only knew them on that level at one point of basketball, but now I have a connection to them for like social change.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I didn't know that Tiffany was a baller too. So I'm happy to
I'm
hear
not sure
that.
she was a baller, but I know her.
She was involved.
Yeah.
Got it. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, and not to dwell on it, but one of the guests that we have during Black History Month was Rito Joseph, who played for Monarchs in the NBL. So it's part of, I hear you, I'm like, you know what? Sports and basketball definitely needs more love in terms of how it contributes to the building of our communities. That's the story that I hear from what you're saying.
And I don't know what's going on today with the association, the basketball association, but what I also realized is, growing up, everybody had like, there was Brookwood, there was Paget, there was the Monarchs, and we were all different Black teams, and I feel like that kind of separated us, because it was like, oh, Monarchs, like,
I know,
over there, like East End. But now with the association, if I'm not mistaken, I know what are they called? Brookwood Elite, I think.
Yeah, Brookwood Elite.
How they kind of formed one team of all, like a super team with everybody from like all works of Montreal, and I think that is super dope, because there's no longer a division.
Exactly. So you know what? I mean, some people who are hearing us right now may think that we're just talking about basketball, but we're really talking about community building, because what I hear from what you're saying is, and we talked about this as well in other episodes, there's this divide, whether it be French, English, East or West, but, any person wants to belong to a group, you're for something and you're against the other, right? And I hear from what you're saying is all these groups competing. Even in the East End, you have Monarchs against Paget, and we have Brooklyn against West Island Lakers. I think that's important, to be against someone and to really hold dear your community.
Yeah.
But then as you grow, it's like I can still be rooted in my community and then building bridges with the others, and it creates something magnificent, because someone like Nugens Dor, who's a Haitian person, who's a francophone, who didn't grow up in the West, played for Brookwood Elite.
Yep.
Now he's in the NBA. So we're looking at the social impact of people who compete, but then they grew on and go beyond the competition and go into collaboration.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like you said, we're using the analogy of basketball, but it's bigger than that.
It's much bigger,
you know. So even with, I remember I went to Dynasty a couple years ago, I think like 3 years ago, and going there and seeing the different ethnicities all coming together, not ethnicity, sorry, wrong word, but to see all Black people together from different islands and different countries, that I thought was super dope. I've never been to anything like that in my life, you know? But there's obviously still more work for us to do where we can all come together and build. And I think they spoke about it in on Wednesday, for the Kneels for Change event. And I think Thierry speaks about this all the time too. It's like the power economics, right? So it's us coming together and, you know, building that community so we have something of our own. And I don't remember what exactly Blvk had said, but he said something along the lines of, right now, people like you, him, Tiffany Callender, Thierry Lindor, they're doing the best they can to educate the next generation, so when they're old and their time's up, they can continue and they can pass the throne and continue it.
But I mean, you're part of it too, and I'll point out, and this is something that I was curious about as well. You started a platform called Blvk Klas. I think that's how the wording as you read it, it sounds like Blvk Klas.
Yes,
and it seems to aim to amplify the voices of Black people. And I was curious to know why you launched a specific platform, because you already had Born to Rise. So it seems to be in the same vein. So I just want to hear you on that as well.
So I started this after, I'm the type of person where I react or I act on impulse. So if I see there's a need for something, right away I'm going to jump into it. And that's what I did after the killing of George Floyd. And that, not that the other killings did not affect me, but I think this was like the last straw where it finally broke me. And it made me realize how much I don't know of our history or our current events and what is going on now and how I can be part of the change. And I mean, I want to get into politics in the sense where I want to educate myself more on that topic, but I want to educate myself on us as people.
Right.
You know, I feel like I need to understand us as people before I can dive anywhere else. And I think I want to stick with what I'm best at, which is storytelling and getting people to voice their stories. And, you know, so Blvk Klas was created to amplify only Black voices, because we don't have a platform where, you know, it's just about us, nobody else, just us. And I want to take people on.
Well, there may be others, but there's little, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't want to take away from anybody that, you know, because, there's like 4 brown girls. There's so many.
Exactly.
My bad. Yeah. Never was average.
But I get it. Yeah,
exactly. And so I started that because I want to have a platform for us to share our stories the way how we have it for Born to Rise, and also to create events or conversations rather around the education of Black people, Black wealth, and our allies too. If our allies want to come and join in to learn more, this would be the opportunity. So I definitely did put it, see, this all goes back to like speaking about self-worth and self-confidence, self-love. I kind of stopped it because I think I kind of took a step back and I'm like, well, who am I to be able to change something, to make a difference about something I know so little about? So I got in my head. But then after that conversation on Wednesday, and they said everybody can do a part, could play a part, doesn't matter how small it is. I was like, fuck that, I'm going to continue doing this.
So when is it that you stopped prior to Wednesday's event?
It was in August.
So you launched it in June?
Yeah.
I've seen it recently on social media. and it seemed fairly successful, and you stopped it because you seemed like you felt illegitimate to continue?
Yeah. I know. It's bad. But then I realized, and that's the funny thing is, you read all these, that's the thing. So I read all these self-help books and I listen to all these podcasts and I'm filled with information, but I'm holding it on. I'm holding on to it. So what good am I doing for others? How can I be of service of others if I'm not sharing what I know? You know what I mean? And this in particular is something that I know is as much like, I'm almost a hypocrite where I can talk about, you know, everybody like have self-worth. No, regardless of what people think, you need to know that you're born here for a reason. You're born to rise. I believe in God, and I believe that God put us all here for a reason and for a purpose. And as much as I believe that, I'm still trying to, that can easily be put in the back of my head, and the forefront of the negative mindset comes to the forefront, and it's like, who are you? You can't do this, XYZ, you know? But it's something that
So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. It's funny because I pointed out a quote where it seems to be what you are currently mentioning. And I'll quote it. You said that you don't call yourself a mentor, and that you feel like a mentor is somebody that speaks off of many years of experience and that you're still learning yourself. Would you still say that today?
No.
Why has your interest, your view changed?
Because after I feel that now a mentor is anybody that can speak off of their own personal experience. And that is something that I've learned through, I think it was a podcast that I was listening to with Trent Shelton. And, actually, no, you know what it was? It was Clubhouse.
Okay.
So I got the opportunity to speak to him on Clubhouse, and I kind of brought up this issue. And I said, you know, like, it's hard for me to put myself out there. I know there's so much that I can give, but I just feel like I need some sort of validation, whether it's like a diploma from school or, you know, being experiencing something for like 10 plus years. I'm like, I don't have that. So I feel I don't have a right to speak out. And he's like, what do you want to speak about? And I'm like, self-love, self-acceptance, and self-worth. He's like, why do you want to speak about it? And I said, because I've once experienced not having that, and I realized the importance of having it. He's like, so why don't you think that you can't be a mentor about it? You've experienced it, you can talk about it. He's like, do you still lack self-love? I'm like, no. He's like, you found a solution to deal with it. I'm like, yes. He's like, so you could speak about it. And I was like, shit. So got it.
So this is an amazing paradox, because you seem like you're very well aware of the moments where you come out of what I would qualify as being like quote unquote imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. You seem very well aware of that process, and there's the pattern is there, mm-hmm. right? You know, you're like, okay, well, I'm worthy to do it, mm-hmm. and you end up doing it, mm-hmm. and at the same time, it's a trap that you'll still fall under next week, next mm-hmm. year, because it's a never-ending thing to mm-hmm. feel that you're not enough, then to figure out that you're enough, mm-hmm. to do something, mm-hmm. and figure out the next thing that is not that where you feel like you're not enough. Yeah. So I'm really amazed by this paradox. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. It makes sense to me.
Complete sense. And I think, you know, working on self-love and your self-worth is not, you pick up a book, you read it, you're like, oh yeah, I love myself, you put it down, and then that's it. It's a continuous journey. It's never ending. So I think the difference between when I'm feeling worthy and when I'm not is that I'm doing the work, the continuous work to love myself and to know that I'm worthy. So I know whenever I feel like, I'm not worthy, like I can't do this, it's because I forgot the practices that I practice, which is, you know, saying my affirmations in the morning, journaling, you know, watching and listening to the podcasts that I would listen to inspire me, to to remind me of my worth. If I stop doing that, and praying is a big factor in that too. Once I stop doing that, I fall off the wagon, and then that's when I get into my head. But I just need to start being consistent with my thoughts and with my practices. And I think I'm appreciative that I'm saying this out loud and on a platform for people to hear, because I feel some people think that mentors or people that are seen of somebody of not a higher status, but of somebody with well-known that can provide them with information. We're humans too, and we go through the same things that you go through. So I want to make it clear that whatever it is you're going through, if it's imposter syndrome, you're not alone. We all go through it.
I really appreciate what I understand to be the integrity of practicing the theory that you're learning about. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm at as I'm hearing you. The other thing that comes to mind is my curiosity around how does it feel when, irrespective of what you've all said, you still believe that you're not enough. I guess that so what I'm saying, what I'm trying to get to is, you don't know that you're enough until you figured it out. Mm-hmm. And I I would talk about myself, because all that you've said, I fully agree. Mm-hmm. But when I'm at that moment where I feel that I'm unable to do something, I have this profound belief that I'm unable. Until there's that click that makes me figure it out, and I'm like, oh wow, I why wasn't I able to do something prior to that? So I guess that may be the paradox, where even though you're practicing, even though you're being steady in whatever practice there is always that moment that there's no hope. There's always that moment where you don't know if you're going to be able to go through that obstacle. I don't know if you understand where I'm trying to get to. I don't have any specific question, but I'm actually reflecting on what you're mentioning.
Right. No, I get it. And I just want to ask you, like, what is that moment of where you click, where it clicks for you?
The moment, that's a good question. The moment where it clicks for me is where I'm able to, and I'm going through with theory here, to objectify what I'm originally subjected to. So that would be the theory. The example that I'm going to be using is, if you're underwater, you don't even know that you're in water because you're swimming, and the fish doesn't know that he's in the water until you come out and you see the water, and then you can analyze the water that you're in. And I do have many personal practices, whether it be with talking to other people, meditating, journaling, where these activities allow me, when I feel like I'm drowning, allow me to clear out the water and actually get to a point where I can name and have words on my experience. The moment where I can have a name and put words on my experience, that's where I'm talking about something that I can see. But if I don't see it, I feel like I'm drowning. So the words are the way that I process things. So I'm like, well, what is? But and I also spend time thinking. So I'm actually doing it. I'm stopping. What am I trying to say? When I find the words, that's a good moment for me to say, look, I can talk about something. If I don't find the words, it's very, very hard for me.
No, I understand that. And I think for myself, when I'm going, it's harder for me to speak upon something while I'm going through it to others. So my Born to Rise show, the first year I went into my story about vitiligo and, just sharing what I just shared with you about my story. And I had no problem doing that because that was something I got over. I had risen above it. But if I'm in the process of going through it, I can't speak upon it.
It's funny because it seems like you're reading my mind. I was about to ask you about the boundaries of storytelling, like what is good storytelling is, and I feel like that's what you're answering. So I understand that as you're in the process, you
No, I can't. I don't speak, and I don't advise anybody to speak about something that they're currently going through unless they're confident. Because once it's out there for people to comment, for people to judge. So I don't want you to share anything where it can do harm to you. That's not the point of the show, you know? I want you to speak about something that you've battled and you conquered.
Right.
And then we'll learn from that story. But if it's, I had one speaker where, you know, she wanted to come and speak about family issues that she was going through. And she had such a powerful story that can relate to so many people. And as we're going back and forth to, because everybody's story, we sum it up within 7 minutes. So it's kind of hard. So I kind of like take the most impactful moments and I help cater them to what to share with the audience. And we're going back and forth. And the day after, the day before the show, 2 days before the show, she said that, she's like, I can't do it. And I was completely fine with it. I was like, girl, I'm like, that's you. That's completely fine. You're not ready. I kind of sensed it. So I didn't even put her on the roster because I'm like, she's not ready. But through our talks, I felt like it helped her reflect on her life and her situation. So I wanted to keep that door open with her to be like, to use me as a sounding board. I was there to just listen. If she wanted advice, if she wanted, you know, or just wanted an ear, I wanted to be that ear for her for that time being.
Which seems to be probably another condition is really that notion of integrity, right? Because if someone goes out and talks and doesn't walk the talk or doesn't embody the talk, then the speech is not as powerful or can even be detrimental. And I find it interesting because the process is not only about sharing stories for others, but it's also for the person to embody a new capacity or embody a new skill through the process of going through Born to Rise. So it's both learning how to speak, but learning how to embody whatever topic that you're going to be talking about.
Exactly. It's, you know, people think it's only to inspire the people that come out and sit down and listen to your stories, but it's therapeutic for the speakers themselves, you know?
Yeah.
I would say a good 90% of my speakers are speakers that come out and share their story for the first time. If it's not for the first time on the stage, it's the first time even talking to one person about it. So it's definitely a nerve-wracking thing, but 90% of the speakers, after they come off the stage, they go from tense to super relaxed and they say, I want to do that again. And then if you look at their social media page, they're still doing it. They're inspiring through what it is that they've been through. So I think that's where my strong suit is finding these speakers and showing them their worth through their own experiences.
By the way, you're giving an amazing lesson on what I really find dear in this podcast, the notion of being the becoming, which is something that we often we sometimes hear about. And I'll certainly listen to that episode over and over because what you're talking about is what I find to be almost the only thing that we can do. Being ourselves or trying to be ourselves, sharing about that story, and looking for a place, a sweet spot where you just trying to be present with your own personal experience.
Yeah, and that's it's again, we're talking. This is just a conversation, and we're not sitting here and saying that it's an easy thing to do.
It's I was about to say, but I must say it's fucking hard. It's really, really hard.
Being in the present, in the moment, and, you know, not focusing on what's to come or what's left behind. It's one of the hardest practices.
It's really
ever.
hard. Like I do trust, and this is why I appreciate it. I really trust that you're talking from a place where you're practicing what you're preaching. I mean, I'd be challenging you a lot more if I felt differently. What has been the most rewarding aspect of your work?
It would be what I just described, which is given the opportunity for people to share what they want to share, their knowledge and their story with an audience of, in 2019, we had an audience of 500 people that came out. So for me, giving them that opportunity to find another part of their worth through just being themselves, nothing more. No one is buying into you because of a product that you sell or for a certain status that you have. It's acknowledgement for who you are right then and there. And also for the benefit of, like having that many people watch you and support you and to tell you like, wow, your story changed my life. So I think out of everything I've been through and all the adversities and challenges that I've faced, this has been one of the most rewarding, is being able to give back to others in a space where I'm only asking them to be themselves.
And it's going back to that notion of being yourself really being super hard. I would even challenge myself in saying that it's super hard, and at the same time it's the easiest thing to do or the simplest thing to do. Because if you are not going there, it makes really all relationships with yourself and others super complicated.
It does.
So it's both really hard and it makes life super easy.
I always have to remind myself to be myself. Like, not that I'm not, but before coming on here, anytime I'm speaking out loud or on a platform, I become nervous because it's an opportunity. I'm open, I'm being vulnerable. That's what my strong suit is. And it gives opportunity for someone to judge me. So I'm always thinking about that. And then I have to remind myself, like, Aiesha, just be you, and whoever this message resonates for, that's all. If it touches one person, then you've done something. But this is also therapy for myself being here. I again lost my train of thought. Sorry. It's gone.
It's okay. You seem to be very aware of how your life experience informs the person that you are and the person that you become. Can you describe who Aiesha Robinson is rising to be in 10 years?
In 10 years? I am... Who am I aspiring to be? I want to be a change maker. Somebody... And when I say a change maker, how I want to be a change maker is by changing others' lives and showing them how they can also change the lives of others. I want people to use my story as an example and to say, if this girl can do it, then so can I. If she can rise, so can I. This is part of the launch, but with Born to Rise, I have a goal to... should I share it here?
Go ahead. You feel free.
But with Born...
Is it so let me ask you, is it something that you like some special announcement, or is it something that is a goal that you don't feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I'm not gonna share. You'll see in April.
Okay.
Yeah. But that'll answer the question as to where I see myself in 10 years.
Right.
And obviously somebody that continuously works on themselves. I know it's hard for me to... I hate when that question's... No offense to you or anything, but I hate when that question is asked, because I'm like, I have a certain goal and a lifestyle that I want to live 10 years from now. And I see a way as to how I want to do it. But I don't like to put time limits on things. You know what I mean?
Totally fair.
Like, when it happens, it happens. What's for me? Because the reason for that is because I've put so much pressure, and one of the reasons why I don't think I'm worthy and I'm so hard on myself is because I compare where Born to Rise is today and where if somebody else that was more consistent and like their being, where they would have taken Born to Rise. You know what I mean? And I sort of forget that everybody travels on their own pace. So it's not really a race. And sometimes I think it's a race and I'm like, well, this person started before me and they're skyrocketing. So why is it that I'm not doing it? Yeah. And so I don't put time limits on anything or say where I want to be in a specific year, a couple years. And I get it. People are like, oh, you got to make your goals, your life goals, et cetera, et cetera. I have my goal for my life and I know what it is going to take me to the person I aspire to be. And how long? I don't know. It could be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 5 years, tomorrow. Yeah. So I'm just going to wait it out and see what happens.
That's totally fine. And I hear a lot of wisdom in all of this.
Oh, thank you.
So I don't have any other questions. Mm-hmm. I really want to thank you for the wisdom. That's the word that I have in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you for the wisdom. And I do have a gift for you, however.
Oh, yeah.
So the book is Until We Are Free, Reflections on Black Lives Matter in Canada, edited by ronde.e.s, Sandy Hudson, and Cyrus Marcus Ware. Showing it on this camera. Offered by La Librairie Racine. Do you know about La Librairie Racine?
I don't, but I will know now.
Now the time is to know about it. Launched by an amazing person called Gabriela Quinte Garbeau. It's a library.
I
not
do.
Too far
of
from
course,
here.
I know.
Oh,
Yes. We were in a group together. Yes, I know her. Yes.
Great. So this is
amazing. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm gonna DM her too.
Well, yes, pleasure. So again, thank you. I will certainly listen again to this interview.
Me too.
And I want to thank Zenga. I want to thank
you.
Elise.
Thank you.
I want to thank Sean. And thank you for those who are listening, will be listening. Et merci beaucoup. Au revoir. À la prochaine.